Slavery existed in Arabia long before the arrival of Islam. It was an ingrained part of the social fabric, much like other ancient cultures. Slaves were acquired through various means, including warfare, raiding, and trade. The Arabian Peninsula, positioned at the crossroads of Asia, Africa, and Europe, witnessed a flow of people from diverse backgrounds, some ending up as slaves. Debt bondage was another significant source of enslavement. Individuals unable to repay their debts could be forced into servitude. This practice often trapped families in a cycle of poverty and slavery. In addition, children were sometimes abandoned or sold into slavery due to poverty or famine. The lives of slaves in pre-Islamic Arabia varied greatly. Some experienced brutality and hardship, while others found themselves in relatively privileged positions. Female slaves in particular were vulnerable to exploitation. They were often relegated to domestic servitude, and some were even forced into prostitution. Pre-Islamic Arabia lacked any formal legal framework governing slavery. Treatment thus depended on the individual slave owner's morality and social norms. While some masters treated their slaves with a degree of humanity, others subjected them to harsh conditions and cruelty. The arrival of Islam in the 7th century CE brought significant changes to the institution of slavery in Arabia. While Islam did not abolish slavery outright, it introduced a set of rules and regulations that aimed to improve the lives of slaves. The Quran, the holy book of Islam, emphasizes compassion and justice, encouraging kindness towards slaves. One of the most impactful changes was the prohibition of enslaving fellow Muslims. This restriction led to an increased demand for slaves from non-Muslim lands, particularly Africa and parts of Europe. The trans-Saharan slave trade, connecting North Africa with sub-Saharan Africa, flourished during this period. Islamic law also emphasized manumission, the act of freeing slaves. It was considered a pious deed, and several avenues for manumission were established. Slaves could purchase their freedom, earn it through good service, or be freed as an act of charity. Despite these reforms, slavery persisted in the Muslim world. The Islamic legal system, while advocating for better treatment, also acknowledged slavery as an institution. This duality created a complex and often contradictory reality for slaves in Islamic societies. The Islamic world became deeply entangled with the slave trade, connecting various regions and leaving a lasting impact. The trans-Saharan trade route brought African slaves to North Africa, while the East African slave trade funneled slaves from the interior to the coast, where they were shipped to destinations like the Arabian Peninsula, Persia, and India. Zanzibar, an island off the coast of East Africa, became a major slave trading hub. Thousands of slaves passed through its markets each year, destined for lives of forced labor and servitude. The island's economy became heavily reliant on the slave trade, enriching Arab traders and contributing to the suffering of countless Africans. The Ottoman Empire, a vast Muslim power spanning centuries, also played a significant role in the slave trade. The Ottomans enslaved people from southeastern Europe, the Caucasus, and North Africa. These slaves served in various capacities, including as soldiers, administrators, and household servants. The demand for eunuchs, castrated males often employed as guards for harems, added another layer to the trade. Young boys, primarily from Africa, were subjected to this brutal practice, which carried high mortality rates and lifelong physical and psychological trauma. The abolition of slavery in the Muslim world was a gradual and complex process, influenced by both internal and external factors. The rise of humanitarian ideals, coupled with economic shifts and pressure from European powers, contributed to the decline of slavery in many Muslim-majority regions. The Ottoman Empire, facing internal strife and external pressures, began taking steps towards abolition in the 19th century. The transatlantic slave trade's abolition also played a role in shifting global attitudes and pressuring other nations to follow suit. Despite official abolition pronouncements, eradicating slavery proved challenging. Deeply ingrained social and economic structures, coupled with resistance from those who benefited from the trade, hindered complete eradication. In some regions, slavery persisted in various forms, often disguised as other labor practices. The legacy of slavery continues to cast a shadow on the Muslim world. The descendants of slaves often face social stigma and economic marginalization. Addressing these lingering inequalities and promoting reconciliation remain ongoing challenges. The history of slavery in the Muslim world is a complex and often uncomfortable topic. Recognizing the suffering inflicted and acknowledging the lasting consequences of this institution are crucial steps towards fostering a more just and equitable future.